The principles of relating with people and connecting and helping them make decisions are eternal. They never change. Building a relationship with someone 10,000 years ago is exactly the same as it is now. And
Oh
we've
yeah.
moved away a little bit from that and we've built tech, which is good. But at the end of the day, I want to buy from you because you're you and you're going to help me get to where I want.
Welcome to the Steve Setka Show, your uncensored champion. I'm your host, Steve Setka, and I'm diving deep into the things that matter most to me: sport, freight, and faith. On this show, we're not afraid to go beyond the surface. We get real, share bold opinions, and hit you where it may be uncomfortable. These are the topics I'm passionate about, and I bet they'll spark something in you too. So buckle up for quick, high-impact episodes that'll shake you up.
To the Steve Setka Show, we're back. And I say we're back because we haven't released an episode in 3 weeks, and I'll tell you why here in a short little bit. But we got a great guest on the show today. We're jumping right back into it with someone who is connected through a really good friend of mine. But before I introduce him, I'm going to frame the show, episode 37 of the Steve Setka Show, with the verse from the Bible, Isaiah 55:8, which reads, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." A very, very brief description of this verse would suggest that God is declaring a core truth about the gap between human thinking and divine wisdom. With that being said, the inspiration for this verse was our guest in the show, Lawrence Abraham. Lawrence, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for the introduction, Steve, and thank you for having me on here.
This is fantastic, man. I usually come on the show and sometimes I'll have a verse prepared that we frame the episode with, but sometimes I don't. So I'll ask the guest, I'll say, hey, is there anything on your mind right now in terms of biblical principle or just principle in life, maybe biblical based? And you said, boom, Isaiah 55:8. Why did you choose that verse?
Honestly, it's been one of those verses that has just really kind of stuck with me for a larger part of my life more than anything. And it was kind of funny because the first time I actually heard that verse was actually from very popular movie, For Weddings and a Funeral, I believe. Rowan Atkinson is the priest in the show, and they just ask him for his thoughts and wisdom for a second, and he just spits out that verse there. And it's just one of those things that very often just resonates with me in the thoughts that there's so much more that's going on than what we can comprehend at the same time, because we're such, I put it, we just have such a small view of what we can actually see compared to everything else that's going on. And it's one of those verses that I find as well too, that like for just anybody, if they're just in like a difficult situation, it's for them to just meditate on at the same time as well too, because you never know what's really in store for you in the future. And it comes very familiar in the whole, oh, now I'm losing my mind on where that one verse is, but I think it's Jeremiah or something like that, where God has plans for you to help you prosper and to help you grow in that sense at the same time as well too.
You're so right. And that's so interesting you say that, Lawrence. I'll jump in here. I AI'd this verse and I got a meaning in plain terms when I put in Isaiah 55:8 and it says something exactly to the tune of what you just said. Just reminds you that like your limitations you have are only what you know. And there's so much more out there. Like we only know 1% of what's available in terms of knowledge or information. AI specifically, ChatGPT is telling me God's perspective however, works on an eternal sovereign level. Because, like, what makes sense to us emotionally, strategically, or morally often operates on a limited short term level. So we're only limited by what we know or what we can do and what we can act. But there's so much more out there that God has planned for our life. And this verse calls for humility, trust, and submission, especially when life doesn't unfold the way we expect it. So it does, it reels you back in to realize that not everything is perfect. You're never going to get everything you want. You're going to get what you need, but you're going to be smacked in the face a little bit. And you can understand that there's an eternal life, a sovereign ability for your life out there above and beyond what you can even fathom. So it's a good way to start this conversation.
I mean, even to say you're gonna get smacked in the face a little bit, I mean, that in my mind is kind of like one of those things where I look at it, it's like you're not gonna get smacked in the face a little bit, you're gonna get smacked in the face over and over again.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's multi-purpose for getting smacked in the face that many times too. It's one of those things to the most important I find is to just help build character overall, because if you have a safety net that you're always going into, or if if you get everything you want all the time without any struggle, you have that inability to really have any sort of faith in the bigger plan of what's actually going on to help prosper you at the same time. And so those smacking the faces, I mean, it's a teaching moment, it's a growing moment, but it's also a moment to realize that you have to put your faith in a bigger power of what's actually going on.
I love that. I couldn't have said it better myself. And this is exactly why I knew I had to have you on the show. We said we don't know each other super well, but we have good, close mutual friends and we vibe, right? We're going to have a great conversation based on that. So, getting into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about here, the struggle, the suffering, which creates wisdom. You and I do something similar career wise. Okay. So, we both believe in faithful experiences in the God Almighty, and we utilize his power in order to build a career. You and me get smacked in the face all the time. If I were to write a book, I would say my teeth are intact still because they've been kicked in so often in sales. I work in sales in transport. You work in sales in a different area of transport. And we're connecting on the world of logistics, transport, getting people around, which is awesome. So tell the viewers of the show here what you do and how we're connected in that sphere.
So, like for myself, what I do the majority of the time is automotive sales. So I deal with one of the bigger domestic manufacturers. If I'm gonna really just do a name drop here, I work for Murray Jeep Ram at Pembina Highway there, and I'm one of the most senior sales consultants on the floor there right now. Well, actually, technically, I am the most senior sales consultant on the floor. I've been there for three and a
Performance
half
as well.
years. Sorry?
And performance as well. One of the most senior and one of the most performing.
Yeah, yeah, I am up there for performing. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's very much of a you gotta go, 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 and you always gotta be on the ball because it's one of those things where if you're not on the ball, someone else is, and it's the opportunity that is just wasted then if you're not on the ball.
You know,
And
it's go ahead.
I was gonna say it takes a lot of sacrifice to be able to be successful at it at the same time as well too. But there's such a learning experience in it as well too.
It's so true, man. And you know what? I was thinking of a couple of things. I know people who sell cars and are in the automotive space. I know some who don't do well. I know some who do well for sure. And it is a grind. And you know, you and I were trying to plan this show and getting on here, and it's 10 p.m. Central Time. And that was my fault that I was an hour behind. I had a commitment that I kind of forgot about in my brain, a little gaff. But you were saying, hey, I work, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 most days and on Saturdays, right? And then if you and I are feeling the same way about Sundays, that's kind of a day of rest, man. I consider that a day of rest. And that might be one of your only days off. So like scheduling around that is tough because you're dedicated and committed to the grind and the drive. And you hear a lot of people talk about burnout, right? The world will throw words like burnout at you. Being a man, I don't really believe you can necessarily subscribe to burnout. We all get tired and we get fatigued. So take a rest and get the fuck back out there. You know what I mean? Like that's how you're living your life.
I mean, it's one of those things where I very much learned like many years ago from working at a different company that it's that you have to have that day of rest or you have to actually have scheduled time to rest at the same time too because if you don't have that time to rest, you end up just losing it in your mind. I think one of the worst periods I ever had in my life was when I actually did 28 days straight worth of work without having a rest in between. And I'm trying to remember how many hours I pulled off that months that I did it because I think it was something along the lines of like 128 hours or something like that. No,
For a
it was
week, probably. Yeah, yeah. And then you're
no
sleeping the rest of the time,
for the months. Now I remember it was like 256 hours.
which is an insane level. It's far more than what you would do in a regular work week, 40, 50, 60 hours. But the hustle and the grind matters sometimes. I understand. I hear you, man. That reminds me when I was living in Australia. And I did 2 years there in order to get my second visa year. I had to do farm work or regional work. And I
Yeah.
worked in like 40, 50 days in a row. And I was just burnt out and disgusted and just so tired. And it messed me up. I had to sleep for like a week after that. It's not healthy and it's not good. So the Sabbath idea on Sunday or Saturday, whenever you practice, right, is essential. It's necessary. If you go back to the Old Testament Genesis, God talks about that, about using the 6 days to build the earth and then resting on the seventh so that we could do that in our lives. Charlie Kirk, big inspiration of my life. Unfortunate events that happened recently. He talked about this and he preached it like the gospel, which is what he actually did. The Sabbath day was something very important to him. Spend time with family, relax, rest. We also watch football in this house. We put reels out of our Sundays all the time on Instagram and LinkedIn. We watch football. We go to church in the morning. We go to Springs. Sometimes we're going for brunch. We're seeing people. And that's just life, man. So that you can be even more powerful in the 6 days that you are working. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, you definitely like. it's very interesting because like I learned a little bit more about the importance of a Sabbath actually from a pastor friend of mine as well too. And the idea it like the important part of the idea is that you have to schedule at least like one day off a week for some sort of rest. And sometimes it's not always the same day that ends up happening like that, but it's important to have just that one day where you can actually rest. And it's not just like the burnout part because the like what you're describing as burnout there in my mind can happen from many different things as well too. But like it's like you need to be able to mentally refresh, you need to be able to physically refresh, and you need to be able to have access to those sources that'll help you do that refresh at the same time as well too, whether it be like family or just like time for yourself, or even just doing something where you can kind of quietly meditate at the same time on some of the things that you need to reflect on during the week as well too.
Absolutely, man. And I love that concept. As long as you're being intentional about your rest so that you can drive forward and be powerful in your life, because we all need to produce and we all need to contribute. So you and I got back in connection, get back in touch every once in a while through Eric, a mutual friend of ours who'd been on the show. You also had an experience with my sister where you were working on a sale. I don't think it came through per se, but I heard about it, which was fantastic. I said, I know Lawrence, that's awesome. He's a great salesman. He sells cars. He's a grinder. He's a hustler. And, you did your best, which is really cool. Whether you're successful in selling a car to my sister or not is not the point of the discussion tonight. The point of the discussion, I think, is to talk more about the space of freight, of transportation in general. You give me some interesting statistics. So I want you to walk through a day in the life of Lawrence and how he operates and what you believe is so powerful about selling cars in the transport world in general.
So, I mean, when it comes to like the sales world in general, like there's a couple things that you really have to keep in mind. One is you have to know what's going on with your clients because you never know how all of a sudden their need can end up changing or some sort of thought. Because if you're not having some sort of communication with your client, it's one of those things where all of a sudden their need could just randomly change. And if you're not on top of that, then you're kind of losing touch with what your client being able to get that repeat business out of them at the same time as well too.
Very important.
Like
The motive.
and like one of the things that like we very much rely on is repeat referral business if we can end up getting that as well too. And like word of mouth in my mind is one of the best ways that you can really get that. And like you have to be able to have that ability to develop rapport with your clientele of what you end up getting as well too.
So, day in the life of Lawrence, you wake up, you go in, you sell, you connect with people. And am I misguided when I say that, like, just people just walk through the door and they just buy cars, or how does that work?
It's like the funny part is like it's not even just like you get up and you sell right away. Like selling is like a very small part of what you really end up doing at the same time as well too, because like you get up, you get to work, you figure out where things are at with what's going on for changes within the industry at the same time. Like I work where I work, there's programs that can end up changing on a month by month basis. And so you if you don't know who has or hasn't bought, you don't know if the new changes might apply to them or something like that at the same time. And so you get up, you figure out what's going on, you end up trying to touch base with the people that you're talking to at the moment as well too. You end up doing some follow-ups with people that you had sold to as well too. And then there's a lot of prep into just kind of knowing what you have to deal with for your appointments during the day as well too. So you try and be able to do some sort of presentation. You get an idea of what they're looking at, why they're looking at it. And it's very much like it's so funny when it comes to the automotive industry as well, too, because there's so many processes with just the whole process wise at the same time. No pun intended on everything there, but everything's just so studied and so analyzed to such a deep level. Like they say the average person when it comes to the car buying process is a 6 month process on average.
So it's like a
And
6 month sales cycle.
it's a 6 month sales cycle for a lot of people. And most of the time, by the time they're contacting the store or walking into the store, and it's getting to be less and less people actually walking in these days. A lot of it's getting to be more of an online business, which really peeves off the automotive world in one way because yeah, as funny as it is, like they lose that ability to develop good rapport from
Yes.
having just internet sales and having that face to face conversation. Sometimes you can't get through to certain people unless you have that face to face conversation where you can show them stuff at the same time. they're just basing it off of reviews that they've seen all over the place. And it makes it so much harder because I've seen it happen so many times where people have seen something in person and it's so much different than what they anticipated in their mind. And it's quite funny with the statistics on how many people actually buy a different vehicle than what they were initially researching on at the beginning. And usually, like when they do come in, it's actually like within like the last, like probably about the last months of the process is when they first start to come in out of that 6 month cycle.
6 month sales cycle is fascinating. I understand what you're getting at because I have systems like that as well too. Repeat business, B2B. That's all I do in the transport world, freight and logistics services. I understand what you're saying because I know there's brokers in your space, right? And they're selling vehicles and they're representing dealers and they're not even necessarily there at the dealership and their customers might not even be there as well. And the thing I find so interesting about that is this AI and tech-based world, this digital world we live in right now is like taking over and dominating everywhere. And it's a little bit scary and it's weird because you have different parts of your brain that work for different things. Like the technology and the analysis and the AI can be done on one side of your brain, but the other side is hands-on, it's touch, it's feel, and it's emotion, like you said, rapport and building that relationship with customers. I don't know if AI can drive a vehicle. I don't think it's facetious when I say that. It can't, right? So you're going to spend a lot of time in your vehicle. Wherever you're spending a lot of time and you're making a big decision with that purchase, you would think that you'd want to see it, you'd want to touch it, you'd want to feel it, you'd want to build that rapport with the dealership, with the car, understand what you're getting into. I hear it all the time. People go online and they don't even actually go into a dealership or speak with a sales representative when you're buying car, which is kind of scary because you get something you don't like, it's not safe, it doesn't suit your needs. You get the wrong SUV because you have kids and you don't get one that has a car seat thing or whatever. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that could go into that. And I find it very insensitive in the world these days that people do that because I have the same experience. I don't get the opportunity to see them per se and build that rapport and relationship because they just want to go on a bid board and put their bids on for freight and transport loads, full trucks, half trucks, whatever, and pick the lowest price. I don't think anybody would be happy if they went into a dealership or spoke with the dealership or a broker and bought the cheapest car. Am I right?
But you won't have it's funny because like they make a point of it when you're starting out as well too that it's not always the cheapest price that ends up getting the business. And even talking about some of my bosses that are very very much more experienced than I am within the car industry as well too, they talk about like would it be fair with me to say that what you and I do is more of a service based industry in that sense?
Yeah, yeah. Sales and relationships. Period. I mean, we're in the people business.
And like there's a certain kind of performance level where you have to be able to deliver on the services of what you're providing at the same time. And like there's for some people there's a lot of pressure to it, but at the same time it's one of those things where you have to almost take a step back for yourself when you're kind of doing an industry like this and realize to yourself, again, you're not in control of everything that's going on certain things. And so, like, when it comes to like cost of certain things, like some people do have very specific budgets and what they're trying to work with because of certain things going on. And other people, like, they value the aspect of you putting in the effort of doing the service for the business and they're willing if they see someone who's knowledgeable in what they're doing and is putting in the effort to earn their business, they'll go and pay that little extra bit of money at times in order to get a better quality of service.
You're absolutely right, and I live in that world. I work in a world where the margins are set at a certain level. I sell at 10, 20, 30 points higher than what that level is. And people say, well, how do you do that? Well, I get ultra creative. And I know what you do as well, too, because I've talked to you about this before. You're ultra creative in the relationship in every different way. People think buying a car, oh, talk about the car, talk about the price, talk about all these different things that you're going to get, the features, the benefits. You got to get creative in how you operate in that conversation. So I do the exact same thing. And what I hear you talking about, which is interesting as well, in business and sales and selling cars, I'm sure is the same as what I do, is you have to be really intentional with organizing your time because you have to block out your appointments. You have to block out your specifics in the industry when it comes to regulations and policy changes or industry knowledge that's changing all the time. Because I assume from what you're telling me is that the automotive industry is constantly changing. You're watching highways, you're understanding what the government is doing, you're looking at taxation structures because buying a vehicle for a lot of people is probably the second most expensive thing that they'll ever spend money on outside of potentially their house. So guiding somebody through that, it doesn't surprise us that it takes 6 months in order to go through that. How would you guide someone when it comes to being creative when you need to get into the nitty gritty of their life with the vehicle that they choose?
So, I mean, if they're having to be creative, like the initial bit of what you really have to do is you have to you have to be very observational when you look at the person as well too. Like for myself, like there's a couple things with being observational that really help out as well too. And just having like a general foundation of general knowledge really ends up helping because you could look at someone's jacket, for instance, and like I saw it with your brother-in-law there. I'm like, that's oh no, I'm trying to remember. That's PCL.
There you
They're
go.
clients. And so just started off the conversation and actually found out that he works with an old friend of mine pretty well within the same office there. And so that was just kind of like a hilarious kind of connection. But it's those kind of little connections where it's a little bit extra creativity, but it also ends up helping you build a little rapport at the same time. Like you want to be able to softly bring down those barriers. And like the other kind of creativity of what you kind of have to do is you have to be able to, as we call it in our industry, objection handle.
Yeah,
And so you have to be able to get them comfortable enough to be able to state out the objections of what they're doing and what they're showing at the same time as well too. Because if you don't know how to stick handle the objections, then you're not going to really get too far with them in the long run. And you have to be able to be very quick on your feet about it. And the other thing, it's kind of funny because as like a professional, I don't know if you end up having the same kind of issue, but like from what I see in the automotive industry, like we try to be professional. We try to set up appointments with people because our time is valuable and we want to be able to give people the time that they need to be able to get something done.
hmm
And people, when it comes to the automotive side, they can be very loosey goosey about the whole time, whether they'll be like an hour early or they'll be like 3 hours late. You're kind of just seen as like that guy where it's like, okay, you know what, that guy's desperate for sale. He's gonna be completely flexible. And the funny part at the same time is like if you're 15 minutes late with someone on an appointment because someone took a little bit longer, you're already starting to lose that client at the same time as well too. And it's a very interesting aspect at the same time as well too, because there's such an importance on getting things right very quickly as well too.
agree.
Because like for myself, like I've figured it out over the years where basically I have about two shots to be able to actually find out a vehicle that would actually work well enough for the person. Because if I miss it on those first two shots, then my ability to get that customer to come back and actually get something done with them, it goes down dramatically after that. And what it feels like for them at times in my mind is that if you don't get it right, it feels like a waste of time for them and you've lost their trust.
Yeah, trust. I love how you ended with that because you're building trust in the relationship and you're building rapport, and that's how you get people to buy, and that's how people will buy. There's a great book I have. It's called "Sell the Way That You Would Buy." So it's interesting concept because I think about this all the time when I go to buy something specifically myself. As you said, you're a professional. I'm a professional as well. I will help the salesperson sell me because I understand what I'm looking for and how to sell and how to build those relationships. It's quite interesting. My wife says this all the time. You're like doing the work for them. And I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm going to buy and I understand. I'm just trying to get the information, the knowledge, and I want to help them at the same time. So it's a little bit of a give and a little bit of a take.
And it's very interesting because you don't realize, or not the average person realizes, how guarded everyone is
No,
when they're first
absolutely.
just talking. Like, it's like the funny part is like the salesperson wants to be able to help you as best as they can. And if you're not going to tell them everything right up front, or if you're not going to be honest with them, or even if they follow up, if you're not going to be completely honest, you're you're kind of making things harder for yourself and for them at the same time.
You're so right, man. And you're a helper. You're a professional helper. And I was writing some notes down because I heard what you're saying, and I love when you talked about objection handling because I believe the essence of objection handling is dealing with those objections that people have without being on the defense, without even them understanding that you're handling an objection per se. It's all going to be natural and flowing within the conversation. A friend of mine who also sells freight, and we do the same types of loads and we work together regularly, says, Steve, customers come to you and come to me and come to you, Lawrence, as well too, because a lot of people want to be told what to do. They want to feel so comfortable with somebody that is willing to help them that you are going to guide them into the best, most fitting conclusion for their life, whether it's buying a car, buying a freight load, buying a house, whatever it might do. And it's very true. But people don't necessarily want to be sold. So if I have the opportunity to guide them to saying, hey, look, I know what you want. I don't say this to them, but I know what you want. I'm going to help you get there because I'm going to uncover that pain. We're going to look at the outcomes you're going to look for, and we're going to get you to that conclusion that you were going to see that you didn't even know was necessarily possible. Then I'm going to succeed and I'm going to sell. Then I'm going to make a lot of money, and they're going to be happy at the same time. And like you said, repeat referral business. You're in B2C, I'm in B2B. It's the exact same. Even though I'm working with businesses, you're working with people, and maybe a little commercial as well too. It
I
all
always
comes down to that. It all comes down to trust. It all comes down to, are they willing to come back to you when they have that 2-year renewal or whatever it is on their lease in order to get their next vehicle? And then you got that whole process over again, but you're chipping away at that block every single time to make them feel better about spending money with you because you're getting them the results that they want.
and I always find like when you know you've done your job well, the client is going to end up saying something of a very similar phrase to this. What would you do?
Yeah.
And that's when you know you've done it well because you've got their trust, you got their attention on it, and that's when they start if they start to value your opinion, they and like for myself, like I really want to be able to help people make the best decision. I'm very much a person where I had a very similar scenario on Saturday where I had to have a very frank conversation with them because what they were planning on doing just wasn't exactly quite feasible with what they wanted to do. And it was kind of funny because the there was a brother involved with the initial client as well too, and he says, "You're not doing a really good job of selling the vehicle." And I said, "Listen, I'm not trying to sell you the vehicle that you're looking for here. I'm trying to give you the upfront news here first on what's actually going on and how the numbers are working on something like this, so that way you can make a better decision, and then that way I can help you make a smarter decision in the long run." And then that just kind of just like toned him down a little bit at the same time.
Yeah, to
But
disarm a little bit. It's part of the job, right? Sometimes you have to get a little bit nippy and a little bit picky, right? And you have to rebuild up when things get kind of broken down. So I hear you, man. That's fascinating. Keep going. Sorry.
no, no worries. It's like one of those things where like it's one of those things where you with experience you know you're not going to win every situation of what ends up coming up as well too, because sometimes what the client really needs is, as much as you want to provide something that'll end up working for them, sometimes you don't exactly have the service of what they actually need at the same time. But you kind of have to take the sacrifice and hope for something in the future and kind of help guide them in the direction of what they're looking for at the same time as well too.
You absolutely must do that. There's no other way per se. It's so basic and it's so simple. You want to keep it simple for them. And the thing that I love about what we're talking about, and you relating this back to the Bible, is that the principles of relating with people and connecting and helping them make decisions are eternal. They never change. Like building a relationship with someone 10,000 years ago is exactly the same as it is now. And
Oh
we've
yeah.
moved away a little bit from that and we've built tech, which is good. It's beneficial in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, I want to buy from you because you're you and you're going to help me get to where I want.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. Like this is probably something that's different from your industry in one way, but like I've seen it in my industry as well too, where there, I kind of hate to put it like this, but there are certain people that you have to be careful of in one way because they will just, I could get chastised for this saying this a little bit in one way, but there will be people that are out there that are just looking for the immediate kind of business more than anything, and they don't care about what happens in the future. They're just caring about the now. And for myself, like I'm trying to develop a long-term business strategy. I'm as much as, it's great to do something now, I want to be able to do something later as well too. So being able to be more helpful in the now and being able to do the right thing now in my mind, it's one of those things where I'm building something so that way I can help you now, but I want to be able to help you later and be honest and upfront with you. And there's just, yeah, it's in my industry. Sometimes you have to be very careful with the words that are said by certain people as well, too, because it can sound really good at times, but it's not always exactly as it sounds. And so it's important being able to find the right people that you can end up doing business with. And that's, in my mind, like it's very much of a biblical aspect of mine as well, too, in the sense that you want to be able to have honest people that you do business with. And there's a certain value to it that you can't always put in a monetary sense at the same time with being able to have that kind of just trust in another person. And in some cases, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit of a leap of faith, and you kind of have to hear them out sometimes a little bit. If someone's, I use this line once in a while, it's like, I got a bit of a crazy idea here, but just hear me out for a second, kind of thing.
Then you know you're in the door and you're going to have a great conversation with them. I think the best way to sum up what you're saying is you can shave a sheep 1,000 times, you can only skin it once. And somebody said that to me and it hit home. And I have a sticky on my computer that says that because we understand you don't like the immediacy and the gouging and not feeling great about a purchase or buyer's remorse or having to offer, oh, there's a 36-hour cooling off period, whatever, is not a great feeling because of the sliminess of the industry that we work in. Generally speaking, you and I both want to change the perspective and the atmosphere around sales because it is very powerful. It's a wonderful career. Transport's a wonderful industry, even though it's boring sometimes. What I do, I'm sure some of the things you do are not the most exciting all the time either, but you love what you do on the most part, and it's very essential. We're never going to get away from customer coming to buy from a vendor. It's always going to be the case. Last thing I want to jump on here before we finish, Lawrence, is third part of the show, sports. We're not going to get in specifically to sport per se, but connect maybe your life, your activity, your health to something that you've won in life very recently. Give me a really good win that can summarize for the people that are listening.
A good win recently. I mean, that's kind of hard to kind of just say. I mean, oh,
You're so blessed. You're so blessed in so many ways. You got so many. Can't think of just one.
well, it's one of those things where it's like you have to pick the right one way as well too. I mean, you know, and to put it in like for myself, like I've in actual sport in general, like I've had to take it easy the last little bit as well too, because if I'm gonna be quite honest, I've just had way too many injuries over the years, and it's one
Yeah.
of those things where it's like I had to retire young. But I mean, it's one of those things where probably like one of I'll if I'm gonna get personal here, probably one of the biggest wins is just relief from my kidney stones lately as well too,
Okay.
because
Come on,
that
man.
was
So important. Health is wealth. Tell me more.
I mean, that was an ongoing saga, and, I mean, it was 4 months that I was having to deal with that at the same time, and it was one of those things where, like, we I was expecting to kinda deal with it a lot sooner because they're like, "Oh, it's not really that big for what you got for stone-wise," and it's like, "Okay, that's no problem." Then it just one of those it just ended up getting a little bit of like minor complications on it that they were hoping wouldn't be major complications. And it was quite funny because I had to go in for a procedure for it. I was literally the youngest guy in a group of 7 other guys that were getting the same procedure at the same time. And like it was just one of those things where like the initial bit of recovery kind of just was not the easiest, but then after like once the initial bit of recovery was done, I could tell day from night the difference of what it just felt like physically at the same time that it was a certain kind of relief that I hadn't had for a long time. And I mean, I'm sure you might understand that like this took up most of my summer, and sometimes on a really hot day in summer it's not that bad having a cold beer.
Yeah.
And part of the downside is like when you got kidney stones, like you can have what they call a blockage happen at any moment. I call it an episode, but basically that blockage requires you to take a morphine, and you can't take morphine with alcohol. So you're constantly just kind of like in the back of my mind, you're just kind of thinking, I would just like to be able to have that one drink, but I know it doesn't mix well with morphine, and you never know when that blockage is going to end up happening.
No fun, man. No fun. Well, hey, I love getting vulnerable on this show. We talk about so many different topics in general, and it's wonderful hearing your story. And I wish you health and healing and prayers when it comes to that, because I can imagine how brutal that is for sure. But they say that a wealthy man wants thousands of things. A sick man wants one thing, and that's his health. And health is wealth, man. So in order to be a great servant of God and a child of God, in order to sell cars, vehicle, and transform people's life in the automotive space and in transport in general, and in order to just enjoy life and be well and have a good quality of life, you have to be healthy. So that's a great way to end off the show. Before we finish, Matt, where do people find you online and how can they connect if they want to buy a car or get more information?
If they want to buy a car for me, then I can either find me at 300 Pembina Highway at the Murray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. We do both new and used. I help as best as I can. If you want to, you can end up kind of calling or texting me directly at 204-817-9215. Give me a little bit of information beforehand as well too. You can also find us on our webpage at Murray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. I believe there's a few different ways that I can be reached through on that as well too.
Man, you're going to get some business out of this. I can feel it because God's got a plan for your life and mine. Because there's so much more out there than we even know. Bringing it back to Isaiah 55. Lawrence, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for joining us for episode 37 of Steve Setka Show. We'll see you next week.
See you. Thank you, Steve. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you found value in what we shared and that you'll take it with you to positively impact the world around you. If so, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and share the show because we're on a mission to grow and reach more hearts. Prayers, gratitude, and love. Until next time.